Today on the Lazy RPG Talk Show, we're going to take a look at the Victoriana Kickstarter available from Cubicle 7. I'm going to talk about D&D 2024 player handbook videos and some trouble that we had with them yesterday on my day off. We can dive into that, but we're also going to talk about what message we can take from it and what you as a GM can do about it. We're going to talk about Shadowdark winning 4 gold ENNIES, which was pretty awesome. I'm going to talk, today's big topic is going to be surviving D&D's digital future. What can you do to keep your hands around the hobby while Wizards of the Coast takes and D&D and hurls it, focuses so much of its energy on the digital side of D&D? We're going to talk about what we can do to strengthen our position in that relationship. I'm going to talk about campaign outlines in the City of Arches, and we're going to cover the remainder of the July 2024 Patreon Q&A, all today on the Lazy RPG Talk Show. I'm Mike Shea, your pal from Sly Flourish, here to talk about all things in D&D. On Tuesday, August 6th, my Kickstarter for the City of Arches is going to be launching. The City of Arches is a high fantasy city sourcebook for lazy game masters. It's meant to be a focused city campaign setting with all kinds of interesting intrigue, lots of adventures to be had in hundreds of different adventure locations, and all designed so that you can build fantastic adventures for you and your friends in this really awesome city. And the Kickstarter is going live on August 6th. There is a 42-page free sample that you can check out to see if you like it. We're going to look at it a little bit later in the show today. One section of it. It's really big, so we're going to focus on one section. Please take a look at the Kickstarter. Please tell your friends about it. Share the link. You can find a link in the show notes. Please share a link with your friends. Tell them about it and help me bring this awesome product to your gaming table. This show is also brought to you by the patrons of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to the awesome Lazy GM community over on Discord. They get tons of tools, tips, tricks, and exclusive adventures to run your fantasy role-playing games, and you help me put on shows like this. To the patrons of Sly Flourish, thank you so much for your outstanding support. I love Cubicle 7 role-playing game products. I really liked I've got one on my, I've got a couple on my shelf. Uncharted Journeys is the one I've spent the most time on. And another book called A Life Well Lived, which is a giant book about how to build interesting character origins for your 5e games. Really outstanding products, really good-looking products. Fantastic design, really fun and fun to bring in your game. And they are doing the Victoriana 5e role-playing game. This is fantasy 5e set in 1880. So I think it feels a little bit like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell kind of stuff. What would it be like during the Revolution or during the times of Queen Victoria, only with magic, and it looks like definitely some steampunky kind of things going on. So looks really cool. There's a lot of videos where they talk about it. You can take a look at all the sort of things that they offer in the Kickstarter. It was interesting because I think Cubicle 7 was one of the companies that was going to put out their own version of 5e after the OGL catastrophe of last year. And they said they were going to, but I don't think they are. I bet you that they're pulling back, and now they're like, why make another fantasy role-playing game when there already are other ones, especially ones that have already released all their material in Creative Commons and stuff like that. They don't really need to as well, but they can build focused 5e campaign settings around particular themes. It looks like this is one such theme. So I like the strategy that their company is taking of I think they're doing what I do a lot of times, which is look at the industry and say, what isn't being made that should be made? And the idea of what if we did a whole book just on character origins? Or what if we did a book on just journeys and exploration? Or took what we did for other role-playing games on journeys and exploration and built them out. In this case, saying, what if we did put out a 5e role-playing game, but we did so in a very particular, interesting time and setting that's different than what anybody else did. Thus, you have the Victoriana 5e role-playing game. So it looks really cool. I backed the PDF level to see what they've got. I don't know if I'm going to run it. I've got a lot of different games I'm going to run, and typically I buy physical versions of books that I know I'm going to end up running. But I'm sure the physical book will look really good. The one for Uncharted Journey is fantastic. The one for A Life Well Lived is also fantastic. I really, really like both of those books, so I am confident. They do not have a sample, much less a single click sample. So that's, for me, my thing. I like to be able to see what they're going to do. On the other hand, I have so many other Cubicle 7 products. I have seen what they're going to do. So I know that they are going to be able to fulfill this. I know that it's going to look really good. So I recommend it. I think I would, if I were you, I would take a look at the Kickstarter page. I would scan through it and see if it is the kind of setting that you're particularly interested in. And if it is, maybe pick up the PDF, or if you think you're actually going to run it, then grab the physical version. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Boy, so I had an interesting day yesterday. Today is Sunday that I'm recording, Sunday, August 4th. And Saturday, August 3rd, was not a great day. So a little bit behind, I'm going to have to pull some curtains back behind the scenes of when I typically don't want to. I just want to help you GMs find better things. But sometimes I need to talk about some other stuff. I'm a busy dude. I do a lot of different things. I have a pretty tight schedule for all of the things that I do. And I increased that schedule significantly last week by recording 2 extra 1-hour videos. And recording a 1-hour video is probably 4 or 5 hours of time overall, because the raw video itself is never an hour. It's usually longer. And then editing time and prep time and metadata and everything else usually takes longer. So it's about 3 to 4 hours per video extra for what I did. And I did this specifically to do a deep dive of the D&D 2024 Player's Handbook. So the previous Sunday, I received a review copy of the D&D 2024 Player's Handbook. I received an email the day before that from the content creator relations team at D&D, at Wizards of the Coast, saying, hey, you're going to be receiving this book. Please do not talk about any of the internal stuff of this book until August 1st. And the way that I read that was, after August 1st, you can talk about and post. I think it specifically said the words post. But do not post information about the internal stuff of this book. I took that to mean you could. So no other instructions, no other things that was given. So then Thursday was the actual day that the book was released at Gen Con. 3,000 copies. I don't think it was 3,000 all at once. It was like 900 a day or something like that. But 3,000 copies were released at Gen Con this past weekend, and day 1 was August 1st, which is kind of the day that they said, okay, we're not going to have an embargo on this. Now, it's also important to note that some creators also had access to a PDF back in late May. I was offered this, where the same creative relations team said, hey, we want to know if you want to make content for our stuff. You don't have to, but keep in mind we have a limited amount of these that we want to give out, so we're really looking to give them to people that are actually going to make a thing for it. And you will have to sign a non-disclosure agreement in order to get it. I was neither interested in signing a non-disclosure agreement about this, nor did I want to be on the hook to make content for it if I decided I didn't want to. So I said no. I don't want the early one back in May. So I did not sign that. But they did say, well, we'll send you a review copy anyway when August 1st comes rolling around. And I said, that sounds fine. It's going to be out already. I'm not obligated to do anything. But then I got it in hand, and I gave it a good look from last Sunday until Thursday, and had 2 opinions. One is, yeah, I think it would be pretty cool to do like a deep dive of this video. And also, I happen to be launching a Kickstarter on the following Tuesday. I bet this would be a good video to bring attention to my site and bring attention to my Kickstarter, because, I'm running a business as well. So I thought that would be a pretty good thing to do. So I then, on Thursday, I shot my deep dive. And the way I shot it was by setting up a whole separate camera rig that I've never set up before with multiple cameras, so that I could both have me sitting there and the book in front of me, so I could show the book. Because the way I feel about this is I don't deserve an early copy of the Player's Handbook just for me. That if I'm receiving something like this, if I'm receiving a copy of the Player's Handbook 6 weeks before it's out for general sale, I want to share that experience with you. I don't want to try to fulfill FOMO by saying, hey, guess what, everybody, and go to freaking X and have a picture of me holding up the book, right? I don't want people to be like, wow, Mike Shea got one, no one else got one, and what a jerk, right? I wanted to share the experience with you so you felt like you had it too, and you could really understand it. And the way I set it up was so that I had the book in front of me. I had a bunch of questions that I talked about with folks on my Patreon. I had a bunch of my own questions that I had that I wanted to answer, and I wanted to do a deep dive. And I did an hour-long long. So the video, after it was cut and edited down, was an hour-long video. Again, took probably an hour and a half to shoot, probably another hour and a half to edit, and time to get all the metadata and everything else squared away. And I did so, and I was very proud of it. I thought it was a good video. And it's gotten a lot of attention. It's gotten about 3 to 4 times more views than any other recent videos. And I was like, that's great. You know what? I think it'd be really fun to do another one. I actually had this idea before I shot the first video of I want to do another one where I use it at the table to make a character. Wouldn't that be fun? Like, that's a little different than just doing a review. Let's actually try to make a character about it. So I made a copy of the character sheet that's in the book, kind of jury-rigged it up so that I could use it, printed a copy, and then shot another video on Friday. I took time off my day job in order to make that video because, again, I don't have any time. But I was like, well, this would be a really fun thing to do. Again, I'm running a Kickstarter on Tuesday. This would be a good way to get attention. I'll save that video for mid-next week so that I can have a lot of different videos, including a couple different videos about the Player's Handbook and a couple videos about the City of Arches and and then all my regular videos too. My regular prep video, my regular talk show, I could still do all of that. But in order to do that, I had to take time off work, which cost me money, right? And I did so. And so I shot and recorded and edited that video. That was Friday. So Friday at noon, I released this video, the Player's Handbook walkthrough. Again, a lot of attention. Everything's really good. Everything's fun. Talking about it with friends. I think it was actually on Thursday. So let me backtrack just a little bit. On Thursday, I had heard that I think it was the D&D Shorts creator received a note from Wizards of the Coast saying that he could not publish certain pages that he had published in his video, according to the non-disclosure agreement that he had signed with Wizards of the Coast. And I had heard something like it was specifically the index and it was specifically like monster pages or something like that. And I asked about it because I was in the middle of editing the video. So I went to one of my Discord servers and I said, did anybody else hear about this? I didn't know what's going on. And they said, yeah, it's because he had one of the PDFs and it was the PDF that he was displaying that they had given him back in May. And there were things in the NDA saying that you can't release those certain pages. And I said, okay. And then my friends in this particular Discord said, you're safe because you never signed the NDA and you don't have the PDF. You're actually showing the physical book, which is the same book that's available at Gen Con right now. So it's already in the public. So I said, okay, that sounds fine. So finished my editing, put up the video. Everything's going fine. Bob's your uncle. Everything's good. Saturday is my day off. I try to take one day off a week, right? I'm busy. Like today's Sunday. I'm recording multiple shows. I've got games. I got lots of things going on. I need one day to recharge, right? After basically 6 days full time plus hours after. And again, not a lot of extra time. So Saturday's my day off where I'm going to relax. I'm going to read my books. I'm going to play my video games. I'm going to just do whatever the hell I want. And Saturday, I get an email from the creator relations team at D&D. The first one saying, hey, here are all the rules that you agreed to when you got this book, which included a whole bunch of rules I had never heard before. And then a second email saying, hey, Mike, specifically addressed to me. Hey, Mike, I know that email you just got has a bunch of things that you didn't know before you shot your video. I understand that your video is already online. We want to work with you. We are asking that you blur out the pages that you have in this thing, yada, yada, yada. And I emailed back and I was like, this would have been really nice to know before I recorded all of these videos and spent all this time on this, promoting your book, by the way. And I get it. I'm also promoting my own Kickstarter. So it's not like, I'm not a saint in this whole thing. And I said, tell me, what exactly do you mean? Like, what do you want blurred? And then he said, well, whoever responded said, I'll have to go talk to some other people and find out. And now I'm sitting around hitting reload on my freaking email for hours, wondering like, and I wasn't worried about getting sued because A is like, obviously they had made a mistake. So I'm not at risk, but also I'm worried about it because, I can't just go play my video games waiting around for this email to show up. And it showed up, reasonable time, a couple hours later, something like that, saying, we're asking that you blur out 50% of any single page view or 75% page of any spread. Well, my whole book was spreads. Now, lucky me, I'd never changed my view in the camera. So it was always a spread. So for me to add the blur box was easy. It didn't take any time, and I did. And then I'm still like mad about it, obviously, right? And I'm mad about it because like I worked hard to make a video that looked really good, that gave viewers the experience of enjoying this book the same way that I enjoyed this book. And now I have to mar it with this big ass blur, right? Honestly, if I had known up front that this was going to be gone, I probably wouldn't have shot 2 videos about it. I wouldn't have spent all the time editing it. I certainly wouldn't have spent all the time setting up this thing. I probably would have just done another segment on the talk show about it because I don't think it's particularly interesting to hear me talk about the Player's Handbook. I think it's interesting to see it. I think that's what people want. So why are they doing this then? The argument is that people are going to take screenshots from the videos and piece together an entire copy of the book. Now, I have heard rumors, I don't know if they're true or not, I didn't go see, that there were enough videos of enough portions of the book that somebody actually did that. Somebody apparently did take screenshots of the book, so much so that they created a book. And if any screenshots from my book were in that, that makes me really sad, because that is obviously not what I want. But it brings up another point, and this is where I think like us as fans of this game can bring something up. Why would people bother to put together a PDF of this book? Maybe because there isn't one. And maybe because there aren't PDFs of all of the other books Wizards of the Coast has published for 5th edition. Now, lots of arguments about whether piracy, putting out PDFs of the books would stop piracy or not, but then also lots of arguments about whether piracy is actually taking anything from your bottom line. I'm not an expert on it, but I think a $4 billion company can probably weather the fact that a couple of copies of this book are floating around there that aren't legitimate. And I bet you people are still going to buy the book. People still want the book. I don't have any data to say that, but I don't think there's a lot of data to say, oh my God, look at the millions of dollars we lost because people took screenshots of these books. In my opinion, in my view, and I back this up by my own actions as a publisher, I think they should put out PDFs. And I think, now granted, this is a different situation where 6 weeks before the book is actually released. Should we have an expectation that they put out PDFs of the book and make it available on the DMs Guild 6 weeks before the other one? Probably not. That's not exactly a reasonable assumption. But you did make them out there, right? You didn't put them out there. And the idea that like, oh, somebody's going to take screenshots and stitch together a PDF version, or maybe has. You know what else they could do? Buy a copy on eBay right now for $150 and scan the pages directly. Right? That's already available. I hate to tell whoever it was that's worried about the stitching together, but as soon as you start handing physical books out, that means they could copy those too. And the only way to combat that, really, is to make a better product yourself, i.e. put it out in PDFs. So where this matters to us as GMs is I think this is another good reason and another good example where we should be asking Wizards of the Coast to release their stuff in PDF. I think this is a reasonable expectation. I think it's a reasonable thing they can do. And I'll even make it really easy for Wizards of the Coast to start with, just as a good start. This is to be a good commitment to say, we hear you and we want to do something. Release the old books in PDF. You already have for every version of D&D up through 4th edition, but very, very little, tiny little supplements here and there are available for 5th edition. Put the 2014 Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual in PDF on the DMs Guild. It will take you like 2 hours to do it. You will immediately make thousands of dollars, right? There's no reason not to. There's no reason not to do that. There's also no reason not to take every other book that's now out of print that was made available for 5th edition and put those up in the DMs Guild. That would be a really good start. Right? That would be a good way to say we are always going to be putting like material into PDFs, maybe not our most current stuff right away, but we have a commitment to making PDFs of our content as we go, certainly when the books go out of print. Even better, though, and I think would address some of the problems that we're talking about with the whole reason to make me blur my dumbass video, is put it all out in PDF. That's what we're really talking about. Just make PDF copies available and be like, oh, Wizards can't do that. What about all this investment? You know what? All of the rest of us publishers in this industry are putting our stuff in PDF. All of the major publishers of 5th edition are putting their stuff out in PDF. There's only one publisher I ever knew of that would not put out their 5th edition stuff in PDFs, and they ended up doing it anyway. So everyone else is doing it. And the idea like, well, Wizards is at a greater risk of piracy than us small publishers is BS, because they're also a $4 billion company with like thousands of employees. I'm a 2-person company that publishes 8 books. Does it matter less to me when my stuff is pirated than it does to Wizards of the Coast when their stuff is pirated? No, I bet per person it matters way more. And you know what? I don't worry about it. You know what other publishers do? They don't worry about it either. They know it's more important to give your customers file formats that help them run this game than it is to worry about what pirates are going to do about them. Because you can never really stop piracy, but you can hurt your customers. And that's what's really going on here. Because going back to this whole book thing, I went through all the trouble of making a video where I really could share what it was like to hold this book, which I think is a really, really good looking book, an incredibly well organized book. I was very positive in my review of it, and I wanted to share what that book was like with people. And now, not only am I not able to share it, now when you watch this video, the video looks like crap, right? The video looks terrible. I had to make my video, which I spent a lot of time to make, right? And I had to make it look like crap. So now I'm mad at Wizards of the Coast because they're putting this draconian policy in place that nobody else has ever put on me. I have published hundreds of other role-playing game products from hundreds of other publishers, and nobody has ever complained about it. Nobody has ever said no. Those are reached out to about it said, absolutely, please do it. Absolutely, we want you to see a product, because they know it's more important that people see their product than it is to worry about whether somebody's going to take screenshots and filter it together. They also know their stuff's going to get pirated anyway. But what we can do is make it so easy for people to buy it, reduce the friction for people to get the product, and then there's less likely of the need for them to pirate it. So that is the long, sordid tale of why I had to blur this video. Yesterday I was considering, I have a second video that was queued up for Tuesday, and that was going to be a video where I go through the player's handbook to build a character. I'm now questioning whether to even release that video. I probably will. It'll certainly be out in the podcast. So if you don't see the video, they'll be out on podcast, because the podcast was the same, didn't have video anyway. But the character sheet one, it's hard for me to listen to my own enthusiasm for building a character out in a video where I had to blur it because a $4 billion company asked me to. So I already am not sure if I even want to publish it. Now, well, is it better than nothing? Maybe. And that might be the reason that I put it up anyway. It is a marred video that looks terrible and pisses me off and doesn't serve viewers nearly as well as the original video did. But is it better to not even have the video? I don't know. So I'm still going to think about whether or not I'm going to even bother to publish that video. Of course, it's 3 to 4 hours of my time that I'm just literally throwing away because of this. And that chaps my ass. But again, it's available on a podcast. So we'll see. My friend Teos, I had hoped when I was getting the notes together for this talk show, what I wanted to do for this section was talk about the fact that I had these couple of upcoming videos, that I liked what I saw, and that if you were interested in learning more about the Player's Handbook, you should check those videos out. Now, why bother? If you want to see a big ass blurred video, go ahead. But honestly, I'm not proud of the video now. I was proud of it, and now I'm not. And that pisses me off. And I also wanted to talk about how awesome it was that my friend Teos had a video, and that he and I independently came to many of the same conclusions about the Player's Handbook. It's a really good video. My understanding right now, and that's as of this recording, Teos' video still doesn't have any blurred boxes because the amount of effort it would take him to blur stuff out is tremendous, and it is definitely time he doesn't have, because his video moved around a lot. There was times where he zoomed into a page and then moved back. He would have to go through practically frame by frame to move the blur box, or else just blur the entire video. And then you might as well just take the whole video down. So he's in a different spot. My understanding is he's talking to them about what they can do about it. But if the video is up, you should definitely check it out, because it was a really good video of the book. What a mess, right? What a complete mess. And one of the things that I think about with this is only the kind of mess that like a $4 billion company can do. Because I get it. Somebody made a mistake, and somebody didn't send out the rules for making videos about these books to the people that they sent the books to. Certainly, if they had told me, hey, make sure not to do these things when you shoot your video, I wouldn't have done it. I'd have done it the way they wanted, because I want to show their product. I want to show a product. I want to make a video that's compelling to viewers. I want to market my own City of Arches campaign. Let me be perfectly honest about that. And I want to make a good video that shows off the thing. And I think it's a cool book, so I want to show it off. So I would have done it the way that they had wanted me to do it. But you don't get to send me the rules after the fact and then make me mar my own video. Obviously you do. So somebody made a mistake, and it could have been anybody. I'm not naming names. I'm not going to point at like, oh, this Chris Cox, man. Chris Cox is angry about the videos. I have no idea what really happened, but it's very possible someone just made a mistake and was supposed to send stuff out to us early and didn't. And it could have been anybody, and it could have been somebody who was also really, really busy. One thing I'll say is obviously the creative, what do they call them? The content creator relations team, they're wasting their Saturday dealing with my dumbass about all of this. So I guarantee you the people actually doing all of the work here, we're all doing work. We all have the good things. I sent a pretty nasty note back when I was done, making it clear, like, hey, please pass this along to whoever made these decisions. I know whoever's receiving this email is not the one who made this choice, but I'm PO'd about it. Right. I'm really kind of mad about it. And I wanted to know why. And I explained in my email the same thing I'm explaining to you. I spent a lot of time on this. I worked really hard to show off your product. I made a video that I was really proud of. And now I have a video that looks like crap. And for no good reason, as far as I'm concerned. In the end, it just makes them look like jerks. And they didn't need to look like jerks anymore, right? Like they've already, there are things, in my opinion, that have been applied to Hasbro and to Wizards of the Coast that has marred the reputation that I do not think they deserve. I like the AI art controversy that happened with Big Bees has pissed off a lot of people. A lot of people swore off Wizards of the Coast because they put AI art in a book that they published and they should have known better. And could their processes have been better to figure that thing out? Yes. The one thing about Wizards of the Coast is they tend to be behind on figuring these things out ahead of time. But nobody inside Wizards of the Coast was like, oh, we should put AI art there and then see what happens. And they go, oh no, we got yelled. So I don't hold them accountable for that. I'm, in many cases I'm on their side, and then I get this. And so it's really irritating. So what can you do about it? Here's what we can do. Here's why it's important to you, the GM. I really think this is an opportunity to say, hey, if you want to combat piracy, put out your stuff in PDFs. Give the same kind of product that people are finding and seeking elsewhere and make it available for sale. Hey, if you want to stop the piracy, please consider putting out the books in PDF so we can download them there. They can put them up in the DM's Guild. We can buy them. I would buy them right away. So that's the feedback that I think this all leads me to is, hey, you want to stop this kind of stuff? You worried about people stitching together PDFs from screenshots? Put out the product in a PDF yourself. By the way, one of my little snarky comments was maybe instead of putting a blur box, I will just put a big copy of Shadowdark right over the front of my video. I thought that would have been funny, but it also would have confused people, and I don't need to confuse people anymore after putting a big blur on there. So again, I didn't do it not because I want to be nice to Wizards, but because I don't want to hurt viewers, and I think viewers would be very confused if they said, why is there a big Shadowdark box up in the center of the page? So instead I just did the blur. But I think it's important to note, Shadowdark won 4 gold ENNIES the same day. I guess the night before Wizards of the Coast told me I had to put a big blur on my screen. That's really interesting, isn't it? Shadowdark got 4 gold ENNIES. They got Product of the Year, Best Rules, Best Game, and Best Layout. It just swept. Really, really good. I love Shadowdark. I think it is excellent. I've run a big, long campaign in Shadowdark. I've run a bunch of short adventures in Shadowdark. I think Shadowdark is the best way to introduce people into D&D. I think it's an excellent role-playing game. It is not, I just did a big review of Shadowdark on my website this past week called Delving into Shadowdark. Big, long article that talks about what Shadowdark is, who is it for, who is it not for, what are some things to consider, some dirty tricks for running the game yourself. Big, long article about Shadowdark. I will link to that in the show notes if you want to learn more about Shadowdark. I think it is a fantastic game, and I'm super happy to see them win 4 gold ENNIES. That was awesome. Hasbro is super, super excited to take D&D and hurl it into a digital future. They are super interested in no longer selling you a single book that you can use for the rest of your life, and instead renting that same material to you every month. That is clearly where they want to go. And there's tons of evidence that this is the case. As Penny Arcade put perfectly, one of the reasons I wrote this article is because there's 2 awesome Penny Arcade metaphors that I think are perfect. And one is they say, it's really hard to sell a single hamburger that you can share with your friends for 30 years, right? It's really hard to have a business where you're selling a single hamburger that you and your friends can eat for 30 years. But that's, what kind of happened with D&D. And instead, they want you to pay rent for the rest of your life. They want you to have to pay a monthly fee. They want you to have to buy little things. And they want you to rent the material and then have full control over the material that you're renting so they can do whatever they want with it for all that time. If there's anything controversial about that, let me bring up a few points of evidence. One is Chris Cox did an interview where he specifically said that they are running experiments with artificial intelligence. And he said, and I quote, D&D has 50 years of content that we can mine. That was from an article that he did on VentureBeat. You can read this whole thing. I will link to all this in the show notes, where he specifically talks about the idea that they have been experimenting with artificial intelligence and that, hey, there's a lot of stuff here we could use. He does talk about the ethics of AI a little bit, but he's also pretty interested in saying AI stuff, right? The new head of Wizards of the Coast is a former Blizzard employee. So, worked over at Blizzard Entertainment, a video game company. He replaced a former Amazon and Microsoft executive, Cynthia Williams. So they replaced one person who worked on Microsoft digital gaming with somebody that worked for Blizzard in digital gaming, right? So these are not tabletop role-playing game people. These are executives from the video game industry. They put up a new job posting for a product architect, which is kind of it seems like the new lead for Dungeons & Dragons. And in this thing, it talks about a particular focus on innovating our playable content for digital platforms. In the job request, even worse, can it get worse? It can. Then they put up another job request for a quote-unquote monetization designer. right? A person whose sole job is figuring out how to charge you rent, how to not sell you the 30-year hamburger, right? There's a whole job description about this. And there's some nice words in here about making sure that you're focusing not on profit, but instead on making a great thing. Nice throwaway line. You're still trying to figure out how to rent us stuff that we could buy. I have never seen a job title, monetization designer, that is closer to professional and shitifier in my life, but there it is. So in case there was any doubt that Wizards of the Coast is really, really interested in a digital future for D&D, there it is. Yesterday, after I've already written this article, and after it's already kind of edited and stuff, I found out that they ran a live play game at Gen Con using Project Sigil, which is their 3D VTT. First of all, gutsy move, putting a public version of this out available and not worrying about the game blue screening with some CrowdStrike bug in the middle of your giant presentation of it. So good on them. That's gutsy. Like, I've been to many software failures, and it's very easy to have stuff. It happened to freaking Steve Jobs at Apple. That's a gutsy move running it there. But obviously, what are they doing? They don't want to just show you the physical books. They want to show the other one. Now, also in fairness, Jess Lanzillo, the new vice president in charge of D&D, who was put there just recently, was at Gen Con, and she did a Q&A. She talked about the OGL. She talked about a lot of stuff. And somebody asked her, hey, are you going to keep publishing physical books? And her response was, yes, I just came back from a physical printer, so I sure hope so. And that they have no plan to not be producing physical books. They still intend to produce physical books. I believe that's true. There were enough people that had read all of these things about digital stuff that they said, I bet you there's not going to be physical books for D&D in the next 2 years. I would heavily bet against that. I am sure that Wizards of the Coast is still going to publish physical books. And to me, those physical books are the main product that we should be focusing on when it comes to the kind of stuff we buy from Wizards of the Coast, because that's the 30-year hamburger. We get to buy it once and then we own it, like the last 50 years of D&D have been. So yes, physical books are still out there, but all of the rest of this stuff shows that their real interest of Hasbro as a $4 billion company that is trying to, increase shareholder value, their focus is on digital and D&D. And when they talk about it, and they talk about it all the time, we should believe them. We should not say, oh, but I'm sure that's not true, or they're just saying corporate things to be nice. Believe what they say. And what they say is that they're focusing on a digital future. But I have wonderful news for you. Are you ready? It doesn't matter. This is a totally different kind of industry than all of the other industries that can be enshittified. It is going to be, WOTC is trying to build a moat in an ocean. They're trying to build like a monopoly when there is no monopoly. And in many cases, they themselves are helping to break that monopoly, and I applaud them for doing so. We're going to talk about that. But the reality is, when it comes to the digital future of D&D, we have a safety floor underneath us. That means that there's a level of enshittification that cannot occur if we don't allow it to, because we hold the game. And I want to talk about 5 main reasons why. 1, the 3 core books for D&D up through all of these editions are physical books. And the new ones are going to be physical books too. I have one of them in hand, and then we know that the other 2 are going to be physical books. They're not going to not make those physical books. And once those core books are in hand, we really don't need anything else. In fact, we don't even necessarily need the new books. They're going to be physical books because we have all of the old books. I'll get to that in a minute. 2, they're almost certainly going to put out a physical starter set. And that starter set, in my opinion, is probably the most important product they can put out there, because that's the product that brings people to the game. It's the thing that they can buy at Walmart and at Target. It's the thing that you can buy on Amazon for like $12. I usually buy a whole bunch of them just so I can throw them in little libraries and giveaway boxes and stuff like that. I like to just put that out there as much as possible. Those are physical products that you can buy, that you can keep, that you can run, that you can own, you can run again, and you never have to reach back to Wizards of the Coast and say, hey, do I have to give you another couple bucks in order to run the starter set again? No, you can just run it. So they're making a physical starter set. I believe they're almost certainly making a physical starter set. And that is where the importance of D&D and Wizards of the Coast as ambassadors of the hobby, of bringing new people in, is most important. Get them in with starter sets, have them use core books, and then have them expand out into other material and even other games that exist in the TTRPG hobby. That seems like the right path. Wizards of the Coast made a promise to release the 5.2 system reference document. These are the updated rules for D&D 2024 into a Creative Commons license in February. That is awesome. I applaud them for that. I am really excited for them to do so. I'm going to keep an eye on it and hope that they really do. I believe they can, and I believe they will. but anything can change until we have them. But we also have the 5.1 SRD in a Creative Commons right now. Again, we have a lower floor. Any of us can build any tools we want, any books we want, any products we want, including books like Shadowdark, including books like Level Up Advanced 5e and Tales of the Valiant and all of these other books. And then systems to support those online can all exist because the core rules are available in the Creative Commons. That is fantastic. That is something that almost no other hobby like this has. We also have 50 years of previous versions of D&D we can play, right? And there are people playing them. I have friends who are running first edition games. I have friends that are running second edition games. All of these rules are still out there and people love them and they're nostalgic for some people. A lot of us prefer newer, simpler, more straightforward rules that make more sense, but some people really kind of like the way that the old rules went. And then there's also multiple versions of 5e available from other publishers and hundreds of other role-playing games that are capturing it. Some of these are written by the people who used to work at Wizards of the Coast and now wanted to make their own game, like Robert Schwab making Shadow of the Weird Wizard, like Rob Hainsel and Jonathan Tweet making 13th Age. People who were making those versions of D&D now got to say, this is the one I really wanted to make. And they give you 13th Age, or they give you Shadow of the Weird Wizard. And then other creators can look and say, this is the version of D&D I really remember, like Shadowdark. And those are available. And nobody's in the way. Nobody can stop those from happening. Once you own it, you own it. When you buy the Shadowdark role-playing game, I have 2 copies of it. I have the nice green one with the Lich on the cover, and I have the other one with the Beholder on the cover. I now own that. It's sitting on my table. I can run it for the rest of my life. This is also true in digital space. Yesterday, I built Tales of the Valiant characters in both Foundry and in a tool I hadn't really used called Hero Lab. Hero Lab was pretty interesting. It's a character builder. It had all of the features of Tales of the Valiant. They actually had like a try it for free system up for Gen Con. So I was actually able to build like a level 1 orc barbarian using Tales of the Valiant in Hero Lab, which was a really nice character interface. I really dug it. And the reality is there's nothing stopping other people from making tools like this, which means even in the digital space, Wizards of the Coast doesn't have a moat. That, especially when you have other entire systems like Level Up Advanced 5e and Tales of the Valiant that I think are strong competitors to Dungeons & Dragons in the very thing that Dungeons & Dragons is trying to do. You also have all of these other games that are available, and you have all of these other platforms. And again, giving good props to Wizards of the Coast. They are releasing the 2024 books, not just as a system reference document, they're doing that too, but also on these other platforms, including Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, and Roll20, which means even with officially licensed D&D, you have 4 different platforms you can try it on. And one of those platforms, Foundry, lets you make sure that you can back up your copy on your own local machine so that later on they can't come and take it from you. The other 3 platforms, I think that's also true with Fantasy Grounds. Roll20 and D&D Beyond are obviously dependent upon your continued subscription and for them to host that service. But I believe that Fantasy Grounds and Foundry both let you have your client applications with your client software and your client versions of the game locally so they can't take it away. So this is excellent, right? This means we've got lots of freedom in the digital tools, and those are just the ones that are officially licensed. Then we have all of the ones that are using the system reference documents or other versions like Shard Tabletop, like Hero Lab, lots of different tools that are available. And the only thing that's in the way for people to design these tools are, can you get an audience to pick them up? Can you come up with a monetization scheme where people are willing to pay for it? And do you have the time, energy, effort, and skills to do it? But you know what's not in the way? Wizards of the Coast, right? They've done it. They've made good Ulysses packs to ensure that this game is strong, regardless of the digital future that they want to hurl D&D in. So those are that's both the bad news and the good news. And I'm bringing this up because there's so much attention applied in both directions. A lot of the attention applied to, oh my God, look at the digital future that D&D is bringing. Look at what they're doing. Look how terrible it all is. And then the other side is like, oh, everything is going to be totally fine and you never need to worry about anything again. And the reality is in the middle. The reality is, yes, they are absolutely hurling towards this digital future of D&D. And that's okay, because the hobby is so robust. It's so strong. It's so resilient to enshittification that when I look at it, we're in a really, really good spot. This to me is a very positive outcome, a very positive situation we're in, where we're seeing some really excellent evolutions and revolutions in role-playing game space. We're seeing fantastic digital tools. We are seeing the biggest game from the biggest publisher coming out with new rule sets that are hopefully bring a lot more excitement to the hobby, but also can connect to all of these other products that are coming out from so many other publishers as well. We're in a really good state for this, and it makes me actually very happy about it. And so this article and the video that I'm doing, my intention mission is to alleviate your concern about the fact that they are going to it. Yes, they absolutely are, and we should look at that, but also we're totally fine. And we can stay totally fine by making sure that the products that we pick up are things that we actually own, buying physical books. I had this weird idea that picking up the physical versions of the D&D 2024 books was like an act of rebellion. But of course you're like, it's not really an act of rebellion. You're still giving them money and they still want you to buy it. So that's not exactly an act of rebellion. But on the other hand, it's the version of the game that they can't take away from you. You're not paying rent. You're owning the property. And I really like the 2024 Player's Handbook. I did my review of it and I really dug it. And I'm looking forward to picking up the Monster Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide and putting them alongside the 6 other editions of D&D and the hundreds of other role-playing games that I have available for me and my friends to play around the table. Sleazy Mai says, I really like how Inshidify proof it is. Absolutely, that's my point. They can do all of this stuff. They clearly are super excited to do all this digital stuff. I got a whole paragraph here of just links to all of the things that they're trying to do. And they really want to turn it into a video game so badly. They really want to turn it, Baldur's Gate 3, they were like, we just want 5 more of those. We want that internal. Like, why did we give that to some other company? We should have that. And they really want to do it. They want to do it with the new virtual tabletop. They want to do it with D&D Beyond. They're going to try all this stuff. But guess what? It doesn't matter because we got the physical book, right? I got this guy right here. Right? I love this version of D&D. I love the 2014 version of D&D. And I have it right here. And I can play that for the rest of my life. And, I've got older editions of D&D. And I've got Shadowdark. And I've got Knave. And I've got Ironsworn. And I've got Apocalypse Keys. And I've got Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Can you imagine Wizards of the Coast putting out a game called Thirsty Sword Lesbians? But there it is right there. I've got that game. Blades in the Dark, Cyborg, Morkborg. Oh, that's just in my little bookshelf over here. I'm not even talking about my bookshelf over there, which is 10 times bigger. Tons and tons of stuff. It's so awesome. Yeah. And it makes me love this hobby. It's one of the things I really love about the hobby. But I think it's something to keep an eye on too. Almost certainly D&D Beyond is going to be expanded out with exclusive stuff. We're going to see more exclusive things being released to D&D Beyond in the future. We saw before where you could get a free gold dragon virtual mini for the tabletop if you pre-ordered the digital and physical copy from D&D Beyond. We saw pre-order specials for Vecna Eve of Ruin where you could get a small introduction adventure when you pre-ordered it, or you could buy it later. That is only available on D&D Beyond. You can't get it on any of the other platforms. This is to be expected. I'm not particularly bothered by these exclusives. Other people are. Other people really don't like the idea that Wizards of the Coast is putting out exclusive content only available on D&D Beyond. I worry about it when that exclusive content is really stuff that's kind of required in order to enjoy the game. I think one benchmark would be, maybe one candle, is when they start putting character options out that are on D&D Beyond only, and maybe selling those a la carte, like special subclasses, like special races or species, like other things that players would want. Again, we can look and say that's obviously the direction that they want to go. Oh, you want our special new subclass that we have? Well, we can only get it on D&D Beyond. You can't get it anywhere else. That to me would be an example of exclusive content that we should really narrow our eyes on. But the reality is no one is in the way of other people making subclasses or new species for 5th edition. We could do it right now, but we certainly could do it when the 5.2 SRD comes out, which means other publishers can make stuff too. So just because Wizards of the Coast made something doesn't mean it's better than anything else made by anybody else. In fact, there are subclasses that Wizards put out that I don't even run in my own games because they don't run particularly well. So I don't think we should be looking at Wizards of the Coast as being the only good designers for 5th edition D&D. There are many, many hundreds of good designers. In fact, people who used to work for Wizards of the Coast now that now work on other companies that are designing stuff for 5e. Their stuff is just as good. So they're not in the way. Again, there's no moat there. Just because they're making stuff exclusive to D&D Beyond doesn't mean it's bad for the whole hobby, because the whole hobby has lots of ways to make stuff for the same thing. So I tend not to worry about that. So you can find a longer version of this whole topic, maybe shorter, depending on your reading speed, in my How to Survive a Digital D&D Future that you can find linked down in the show notes. And the reality is we're in a great state. I'm very, very happy. I love this hobby to death. And it's a huge part of my life. And I am really optimistic about where the hobby is. I mentioned earlier in the show that I'm going to be running a Kickstarter one day after this video is released called the City of Arches. Maybe by the time you're watching this video or listening to this podcast, the City of Arches Kickstarter has already begun. You can find a link down in the show notes. The City of Arches is a high fantasy city source book for lazy DMs. It's an awesome product. I've been working on it for a long time. I think you're really going to dig it. It's compatible with all of the versions of D&D, basically, certainly all the versions of 5e, and it's easily modified to fit pretty much any fantasy role-playing game. I love this book to death. I really think you'll like it. And it has a 42-page preview. And I want to show off one aspect of this preview. I'm really excited about it. And today I want to show off one part of the free preview that's available and talk about how you'll find other versions of this in the main book when the main book comes out. In the book, we have lots of locations with all sorts of different plots and character arcs and adventure seeds that you can use to build your own adventure. One of the things that we have is we have 3 different large campaign arcs that you can follow if you want to have sort of a structured way of running your players through a larger campaign set in the City of Arches. I offer 3 different ones. And in the sample chapter, we have one of these, which is known as the Key of Worlds. The whole idea behind the Key of Worlds is that in the City of Arches, there's all of these archways. These archways are largely dormant. They generally don't do anything. Every so often, a spark will happen and like somebody from another world will show up with no memories of how they got there. They're introduced to the city and they become part of the city's population. The arches used to be portals to all kinds of other worlds or all kinds of other lands that were all used by this terrible tyrannical ruler, now known as the Nameless King, because all aspect of his visage have been removed from society, been removed from all of history. There is another campaign arc called The Rise of the Nameless King, which is about the Nameless King being brought back into power. But then there's this campaign arc called The Key of Worlds. There was an artifact that probably the Nameless King had in his possession known as the Key of Worlds, which let him open up any of the archways to any of the worlds that he wanted to go to. Super powerful artifact and super dangerous. And the idea behind the campaign is that a group of knights known as the Knights of the Black Flame hid this key. They didn't want to just destroy it because of the potential it had, but they knew that in the wrong hands, it would be a terrible weapon that could destroy not just this world, but many worlds. So they wanted to hide this key. So they found a pocket demiplane where they hid the key away and then barred it behind a single door. And then they keyed the door so that nobody can get into that door, nobody can get into that demiplane without igniting 3 black fire braziers that exist in and around the City of Arches. They could be outside. You can actually move them around, but in the campaign arc, we have them in and around the City of Arches, sort of far away places where these braziers exist. The braziers can only be illuminated by 2 objects, a magical staff called the Staff of Severlin and a sword, a black fire sword. That's essentially a flame tongue longsword that ignites with black fire. Only with one of those 2 objects can you ignite the 3 braziers. And if you ignite the 3 braziers, that opens up the door to the vault and then you could get in. And the idea that the knights had was, we want to make sure that somebody, if they really need to, can get there, but only the right people can get in there. And we don't want to just destroy the key, but we want it separated enough that nobody's just going to wander around and find it. They're very small order. So we find out that there's actually, in the campaign arc itself, the characters are brought in by a mage of Cartan, one of the kind of sinister wizard groups that operate in the City of Arches, who says like, hey, I want to find out more about this Key of Worlds. Can you look into it? And this is kind of before the characters really know what the Key of Worlds is about and everything like that. They learn about the black fire braziers. They learn about the objects, but then they also learn that other groups are seeking this key out, that if the characters don't engage with it, other villains are going to go try to acquire these things. They're on the trail, needed to acquire the items and ignite the braziers and get through the arc. So the general campaign arc is finding one of the 2, learning about the whole storyline, figuring out what's going on, learning the location of the braziers, learning the location of either the sword or the staff, acquiring one of these objects, igniting the braziers, getting to the vault, and getting the key before bad guys do. That's really the whole premise of the campaign arc. So the campaign arc talks about the notable NPCs that are here. It talks about the whole background of it. It talks about the initial adventures where at first level adventures where the characters just even first learn about the key and the braziers and things like that. And then they go on this quest where they have lots of different choices about where they're going to go. Do they want to go get the sword? Do they want to go get the staff? They get to pick which one they want to go to. And I've been running this campaign arc for my home game. I've been using Level Up Advanced 5e in order to navigate this, in order to run this campaign, which has been really working very well. And the players went and acquired the Blackfire longsword, but then they said, we want to try to stop them from getting the staff. Well, the key is key. I'm using the word key too many times. The staff is already picked up. They're going to find out that somebody already acquired the staff and that the evildoers have the staff too. The reason why that's kind of an important aspect of this campaign arc is if the characters get both items, then nobody can get the key and they're fine. As long as they bury those two items, nobody can get the key. That's why there's two. From a game design standpoint, that's why there's two. Because the other one, the bad guys can get one, the characters need to get one. And then it's a race for the braziers. Who's going to be able to ignite the braziers as they go? And it can either be that the characters themselves, if they're motivated, ignite all three braziers before and then unlock the door. Or it could be that the other group is also igniting braziers and you want to try to outplay them to see who's going to get which braziers. And then at the end, all the three braziers are lit and then they go to the door and open the door. So that's how the arc works. That's how the campaign arc works. And it's about a 5-page, 6-page arc for each one of these. The design is to kind of give you a 1-paragraph, here's an adventure that you can run, here's another path. The path for each of the braziers, for example, has sort of 3 adventures along the way. If you're going for the brazier of the Nameless King, you go through the Endless Warrens, you go through Dragon's Reach, and then you go to the Temple of the Nameless King. If you're doing the brazier of Greyon, you go to Sunken Revia, you see the Abhuman Effigy, and you go to the Shattered Keep. So there's like different like little adventure paths that exist in parallel that the characters can choose from while they're opening this up. So pretty neat design, and just one of 3 different campaign arcs that exist inside this game. And you can actually mix them together. So there is also the Rise of the Nameless King can be another campaign arc. And you could either run that one independently, or you could kind of do what I'm doing, which I'm sort of weaving the two together so that there are groups that are trying to bring the Nameless King back. They also seek the key, but their motivation is slightly different. And that way there's another set of adventures. And of course you can fill this thing with side quests about how they go and they pick up other things along the way, how they get in the way of the other group that's trying to figure things out, and all sorts of stuff like that. So I think that this is in my opinion, what I'm trying to do is build a way that instead of giving you an entire single campaign adventure and then you kind of having to rebuild it and refix it up and make it the way you want it, that I want to give you the skeleton for a campaign that you can build from to build your own campaign the way you want it to work in this city. So I hope you'll check that out. Again, this is available in the 42-page sample preview along with initial adventures that you can run either as part of this arc or just adventures to run in the City of Arches. It's all available in the City of Arches sample chapter, which is part of the City of Arches Kickstarter that you can reach in the notes below to join the City of Arches Kickstarter. I hope you check it out. Again, best way to support me, and also you're going to get an awesome product at the same time. Please check it out. Please tell your friends. I hope you really enjoy it. I'm sure you really enjoy it. I'm super excited about this product. Thank you very much. Every month on the Sly Flourish Patreon, we have a monthly Q&A. Any patrons of Sly Flourish can ask any RPG-related question. I answer every question every Friday morning. Some of those questions I bring here to the show so that we can dive in a little deeper. Ben H. says, it's been about a year since your video on in-person map options. I've referred to that video a lot when I started first trying in-person games because it's the biggest challenge when moving from online only. In the past year, has there been any other developments you have found in terms of making physical maps easier for players or DMs? I've considered some digital screen solutions, but most seem in early phases and high costs. Yeah, so I've now been running in-person games for 2 of my 3 weekly RPG games. My two weekly RPG games are both in person. I have a third one that's still online. And what I use is I still use my old standby dry erase Pathfinder flip mat to draw maps. I do not draw them square to square. I usually will draw smaller maps for areas and then bigger maps for specific rooms if they need them. And so it's really like draw what you absolutely need. And you can even do sort of line and block charts instead of drawing hallways and drawing details. You can just draw boxes with lines connecting that show the general layout of a dungeon so they understand what rooms are connected to what rooms. And then you can draw smaller, either not to scale or even scale size versions of the rooms so they can get an idea what's going in there. But the old standby of the dry erase flip mat seems to be working really well for me. That's what I've sort of defaulted to. The other thing that I do is I will print Dyson maps. I still use Dyson maps almost exclusively for all the dungeons that I've been running. And I will print them out and I will hand annotate those maps with a pen for my own prep. And so I'll have that map available to me, but then I can draw maps for the players as they're navigating a situation. So that's been my favorite solution of all of them. I tried other ones like having big sheets of graph paper and I would draw the map out. It takes a lot of time to draw a map out early, and I don't really know that it's needed. I think it's much faster and much more flexible to get familiar with drawing quick maps. JP Coovert has a product called Flick Silver Pen's Guide to Drawing Dungeons. It's a really, really fun book. Talks about how to quickly draw out maps, gives you ideas of things that you can do to draw it out. I have done a preview of this before on the talk show. I definitely can recommend checking it out. Another good trick is having the Dyson Dungeons, the key that he uses when he's drawing his maps that you can pick up right on. If you go to DysonLogos.com and click on maps, it's the first page there. Having a printout of this like in your notes so that you know how to draw these particular things, and they're very quick to draw. You can practice them, but they're not particularly hard to draw. It gives you an idea of like, what's a statue look like? What does a pit trap look like? How do you draw double doors? How do you draw crypts, sarcophagi, all kinds of things, altars and things like that. Really good key that you can just sort of keep in your notes. I'm going to print out a copy right now, as a matter of fact. Once you get used to drawing these things out, they'll be in your mind and you can just draw them out while you're drawing the room at the table. So I really dig it. Thomas C. says, 3 questions about the City of Arches. You only get 1 question, but because of the City of Arches, you get 3. It seems like there are plenty of citywide supplements available. What makes yours better than all of the others? The City of Arches, so a few things make it better, I think. I mean, by my own design, but I really think it's better. One is it's designed from the ground up to make it easy for you to build adventures there. That is the number one thing that it focuses on. So every aspect of its design is intended to help GMs run adventures there. Other city source books have a tendency to get a rather wordy, lot sort of deeper histories that are going on. There is a history of the City of Arches, but it's got lots of blanks, lots of ways for you to kind of fill in your information. So I would consider it a very modular city supplement. There are some other design decisions that I think make it different. One of them is that the way the design of the arches occurs so that different species can be coming in from different portals and lose memory, it means it's a place where any species makes sense. So there's no longer a worry about like, why would the half squid person be with the lizard folk at a bar? In the City of Arches, that kind of thing makes sense all the time, which means that there's a big freedom for the players to play pretty much any species that they want. What else makes it really good? Dropping it in. The other thing that makes it, I think, significantly easier is that it is intended to be dropped into any campaign setting. So things like the gods, things like the regions, it's not its own full campaign world. It is really intended to be dropped into either your campaign world or a published adventure campaign world. Those, I think, are the strongest pieces of the City of Arches. In what ways could the new 2024 rules, some of which won't arrive until 2025, impact or break elements of your supplement? I think the City of Arches is going to be very resilient towards 2024 change. Now that to me, the player's handbook is the thing that is going to have the biggest impact on the game overall. Things like the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual, changes in there, I don't think are going to have a big deal. Other than the fact that the City of Arches is a high fantasy city source book with that focus on high fantasy. It's a bright world. It's meant for heroic characters. But there is a way to kind of make it work with a more grimdark setting. I've got a whole description of that. But the theme of the game is going to fit 2024 D&D just as well as 2014 D&D. And there's very little mechanics in it. We have like one new background, which is pretty easy to migrate to any of the background types that you have. We have a lot of different monster listings, but an example of one of the things we're going to do is in the back, we're going to have a list of any of the non-standard monsters. We're going to talk about what source you can pick that up from. I'm actually using the Level Up Advanced 5e Creative Commons document as the reference for this book, not the 5.1 SRD, which means I have a lot more stuff at my disposal to use when I'm tying into that. But the reality is the mechanics are very, very light in this book, which means it's going to be very easy for you to modify it. Instead of having like a high-level adventure thing kind of going on where the power level of characters could shift, because you're building adventures from the material in this book, you can tune it around the characters that you've got. So it's going to be I think it's going to work fine with 2024. I ask this as a never GM. It seems to me a GM would prefer to design their own city to fit it in perfectly with the lore of the world. In what ways did the benefits of outsourcing city design outweigh those drawbacks? So one is you have so many different adventure prompts and locations. I mean, this book is definitely designed to say these are the things that DMs don't have time to make for the game that they have. So lots of different locations that are all designed around the particular types of characters who might explore them, lots of NPCs, lots of adventure hooks, lots of random tables, beautiful full color art, full color maps, full color regional maps. There's a lot of stuff in here that just a home GM is not going to be able to do or not be able to make easily. So the idea is to keep those things general enough that GMs can use them in their games without having to completely start from scratch or have to change a whole lot in order to get it to work. They're really designed to be a modular city source book that you can use in lots and lots of different ways to do the heavy lifting that GMs don't want to do. This is something it's a big piece of my philosophy, and it's something I brought, I think, with everything that I could into this book. Thank you for asking about the City of Arches. I'm so excited. Knighthood says, I always want to make sure my players are getting an equal chance to be in the spotlight. So when I notice one character that doesn't seem to be having as much oomph in combat, my instinct is to place a magic item specifically selected for that character in an upcoming adventure. The problem is that the item I picked out will rarely land in the hands of the character I intended it for. An item that I think will be really fun for one character might be more strictly beneficial for another character to use. I can't fault my players for distributing magic items like this. They aren't trying to shun anyone from the spotlight. They're just trying to be smart about who gets what. I'm fine if this is happening for most magic items, but it stinks when those hand-picked items go in the wrong person and exasperate a problem I was trying to solve. How can I ensure a particular character gets a certain item or upgrade without stepping on the group's agency? This falls into that category of sometimes you just need to tell them, hey, this item that I put in here was actually designed for them. But you could also do it from a character perspective, like the background and the story of the item, making sort of legacy items that are actually built around the character's backstory, so that even if it's like, oh, that weapon would actually be better in the hands of so-and-so, you can say, yeah, but obviously it came from their family, especially like intelligent items or any items that has like an alignment connection could only work for the person who's holding it. So you could literally design the mechanics of the item to only work for the character that you wanted to use it. So I think like you're on the right track of making items that will help people have a stronger time in the spotlight and maybe more fun in combat. But instead of making sort of a more general item, make it something really specific to their character that really only their character can use, either from a mechanic standpoint or even from a story standpoint. And of course, just say it. Just tell them, hey, by the way, that item was really designed for, Jess's character to play. So that's probably how I would handle it. I've not really had much of a problem with me designing an item for a particular character that then another character picks up. I will a lot of time put items out there and think, oh, I bet it goes to so-and-so, and then it goes to somebody else. But that's okay. But, you can instead, but many times when I've brought like a particular item, I've made it for a particular character. Now, I have had it where that character's like, yeah, that's great, but I already have a weapon that I like better than that one. And then you're kind of in a sucky position where you're like, I know I gave you a glaive, but you really like longswords, and you already have a magic longsword, but the glaive has this neat ability. And then you're like, well, it's up to you. Like, you get to use it or not. But I think saying like, building it around the story of the character is what I would do, but also just talk to the players about it. I think that those are good answers. Friends, I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me today while we talked about all things in tabletop role-playing games. If you like this show and you want to help me out, the best way is to go support the City of Arches Kickstarter. Go check it out, share it with your friends, download the free sample chapter, and sign up and go and pick one up. Go and support the project. You can also support me directly as a patron. Patrons of Sly Flourish get access to all kinds of cool things, like the Lazy DM Discord server, the lots of tools, tips, tricks to help run your games, and supporting me directly. You can also pick up any of my books at the Sly Flourish bookstore, and you can sign up for the Sly Flourish newsletter for absolutely free. There's a link to all of these things in the show notes. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.